A North Korean general major from the general staff, suddenly disappeared one day. He was a high-ranking figure who had earned Kim Jong-un's trust over 22 years in the military. In November 2018, what he witnessed were photographs inside a brown envelope, handed to him by a colleague. Senior officials enjoying drug parties, villas filled with foreign luxury goods, and behind them, the horrific truth of political prison camps. A colleague who dreamed of regime reform was publicly executed in the parade ground along with his family, even his 7-year-old youngest son. Why did this loyalist general major risk everything and put his life on the line, abandoning the position he had built over 22 years and his family's safety? What exactly happened in that moment, when the general major made his blood-curdling decision to defect? Hello, I served as a lieutenant general in the General Staff Department of the Korean People's Army. In January 2019, at the age of 48, I defected with my family. I wore a military uniform for 22 years, and was a high-ranking official trusted by Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un. I was born in Pyongyang in 1975. My father was a party official and my mother was a teacher. In 1993, I entered the physics department at Kim Il-sung University. But in my sophomore year, I was transferred to Kangin Military Academy on the party's recommendation. It was during the arduous March period. After being commissioned as a second lieutenant in 1999, my promotions came quickly: captain in 2003, major in 2007, colonel in 2012, and deputy director of the Operations Bureau at the General Staff in 2016. In March 2018, I was promoted to lieutenant general at age 42. But around that time, I began to sense something was wrong. Working at the General Staff, I saw many things: generals drunk during meetings, local officials offering bribes. In June 2018, an internal inspection by the State Security Department began. That summer at a retreat in Wonsan, what I witnessed was shocking. During the day there were lectures on revolutionary spirit. But at night there were foreign liquor and women. Some generals even used drugs. Now I'm telling this story in South Korea. Only now do I understand how heavy the weight of that military uniform was. For 22 years, working at the General Staff meant seeing the regime's true face. Every morning started with bowing to Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il portraits, followed by memorizing newspaper editorials. Control was beyond imagination. Even as a lieutenant general, I went through 3 checkpoints to enter the building. Travel permits were required even within Pyongyang. In August 2018, nationwide inspections began. State security raided homes searching for foreign media on USBs. Surveillance was 247. A colleague was taken by state security for making a critical joke in the office. After that, no one spoke privately at work. Starvation existed even in Pyongyang. High-ranking officials received special rations, but ordinary people boiled tree bark. In winter 2018, a soldier collapsed from malnutrition, weighing under 40 kilograms. Travel permits required 3-level approval, workplace recommendation, local security clearance, and permit issuance. Bribes of at least $100 were needed. Money ordinary citizens could never save in a lifetime. Privilege class corruption was beyond imagination. Positions were bought and sold within the General Staff Division. Commander for $50,000, brigade commander for $20,000. The Guard Command was a separate kingdom with more authority than the General Staff. The bribery economy was systematic. Nothing was resolved without money. University admission, military assignments, job placements. Even reputed clean officials had slush funds. When I first went to a convenience store in South Korea at 11 p.m., it was brightly lit and fully stocked. Factory workers in North Korea earned monthly wages that could buy only 3 or 4 apples. Here, one day's minimum wage could buy dozens of apples. One day in November 2018, a colleague colonel visited my office. He'd worked with me at the General Staff for 15 years. He handed me a brown envelope containing photos. The first showed senior officials at Wonsan Resort, enjoying parties with foreign liquor and women. The second showed a villa filled with foreign electronics and luxury bags. But the next photos were shocking: children from North Hamgyong province, with bellies swollen from malnutrition, lifeless eyes. Other photos showed torture scenes from political prison camps. This system is rotten. We need to change it, my colleague whispered. I've been preparing with some comrades. I need you. Footsteps sounded in the hallway and we quickly hid the photos. 4 days later came the worst news: my colleague had been arrested. There was an internal informant. Documents were found in his study. On November 23, 2018, a summons went out for all major military officials. I had to sit in the front row as a lieutenant general. The execution site was Kangan Military Academy firing range. When my colleague was dragged out, I didn't recognize him. His face was disfigured from torture. Behind him came his wife and 2 sons. The youngest was only 7 years old. The charges were read: treason, conspiracy to overthrow the state, insulting the supreme leader. Gunshots rang out. His wife fell first, then the 2 sons. I watched the 7-year-old collapse. Finally, my colleague fell. A month later, another tragedy struck. 28-year-old Major Park Yu-yun came to my office with documents of military corruption. 2 days later, he was arrested by state security. On December 15, 2018, an execution was carried out within the unit. Yu-yun's face was unrecognizable, but his voice was clear: someday, the truth of this land will be known to all. That night, a report appeared on my desk from state security. My phone records and every movement were documented, even conversations at the barbershop I frequented. My family and I were now under surveillance. North Korea completely changed in the 2010s. Superficially maintaining socialism, money actually controlled everything. Jongmadang markets were at the center. At Pyongyang's Tonggal Street Market, nothing was unavailable. Chinese electronics, Korean cosmetics, even Japanese snacks. A Chinese TV cost $800, a refrigerator $1,000, several years' wages for ordinary citizens. But Donju moneymasters could afford them. Donju were the nouveau riche who emerged after the 2000s. Mostly traders doing business with China or holders of mining rights. They had more money than party officials, and owned multiple Pyongyang apartments costing $50,000 to $100,000, paid in cash. By 2017, the Korean wave had completely spread. Korean dramas on USBs circulated secretly. My Love from the Star, Descendants of the Sun. They traded for about $5 per episode. State security crackdowns couldn't stop it. My daughter watched Korean dramas too, secretly at home with curtains drawn and earphones in. Dad, do people in South Korea really live like that? She asked. I couldn't answer. The bribery economy became more sophisticated. Price lists existed within the General Staff Division. Commander $50,000, Brigade Commander $20,000, Battalion Commander $5,000. Money, not ability, determined rank. Elite embezzlement was beyond imagination. In summer 2018, a major general sold 50 tons of military rations on the market worth about $150,000. Though caught, punishment was light after paying bribes upward. He was merely demoted 1 rank. Senior officials' villas were palaces. One lieutenant general's suburban Pyongyang home had a Samsung large-screen TV, Japanese refrigerator, German audio system. The living room display case was filled with Louis Vuitton bags, his wife's collection at $2,000 each. The drug problem was even more serious. Methamphetamine was popular among the elite, initially claimed for fatigue relief, but quickly becoming addiction. Some generals behaved strangely during meetings, suddenly excited or speaking nonsense with unfocused eyes. Class stratification was clear. The top tier was Central Party officials, Guard Command, and State Security high-ranking officials. Next came military generals and trade company officials. Below were ordinary party members, and at the bottom, common people. Social mobility was nearly impossible. The most contradictory thing the party daily proclaimed: people's happiness. But people were actually starving. Senior officials collected luxury bags while children boiled tree bark. Same country, same era. When I went to a mart in South Korea, I was shocked. Fruit was piled like mountains. Factory workers in North Korea earned monthly wages that could buy only 3 or 4 apples. Here, one day's minimum wage could buy dozens of apples. In December 2018, events began that would completely overturn my life. After my colleague's execution, state security surveillance became blatant. Surveillance agents were at every corner of my route. On December 7th, my daughter came home from school crying. "Dad, my friends won't talk to me." The homeroom teacher had told students to distance themselves from her. After the colleague's case, my family became persons of interest. On December 15th, another report appeared on my desk, more detailed this time. November 19, 2018, 3:42 p.m. 15-minute conversation with colleague Colonel. November 28, 10:15 a.m. 22-minute meeting with Major Park. Even my joke at the barbershop was recorded. "Prices are so high these days, can't live on salary." That night state security called, "Lieutenant General Comrade, please report at 9 a.m. tomorrow." No reason given, but I knew interrogation was beginning. The interrogation lasted 3 hours at state security headquarters. They repeated the same questions, checking if my answers changed. "What about Major Park? You were close to that traitor too?" I denied it, only work-related meetings. On December 22, a second summons came with more specific questions. "There are foreign books at your residence? Someone had searched our home. Your daughter watches Korean dramas, we've received reports." My heart stopped. On December 28, a personnel order came from the General Staff transfer to a border guard division in Musan, North Hamgyong Province. Essentially a demotion. I had to go alone, family couldn't accompany me. That night I sat with my wife. "We can't go on like this." She nodded. "We already knew defection was the only option." "What about our daughter?" my wife asked. "She comes with us. We can't leave her. If left behind, she'd be sent to a political prison camp, not something a 17-year-old could endure." We began planning that night. The Musan transfer could actually be an opportunity. It was near the Chinese border. But it was dangerous. A defecting border division commander would turn all of North Korea upside down. Outside, a patrol car passed. It went by our house every night, now twice daily. Time was running out. On January 2, 2019, the new year brought no hope. The Musan transfer was set for January 15, only 2 weeks left. First, I needed justification. A lieutenant general suddenly disappearing would trigger immediate pursuit. I needed legitimate exit grounds. Military inspection came to mind. Reviewing Western Front divisions was part of my duties. On January 3, I submitted a business trip plan, inspection of military trends in Sinwiju and Dandong border areas, including visiting the Korean People's Army Liaison Office in Shenyang, China, which actually existed. But that wasn't enough to bring family. My wife had an idea. My uncle is in Shenyang. He went there 10 years ago for trade work. He was still there as a foreign trade company branch manager. On January 5, I rewrote the exit application, military inspection combined with wife's relative visit. Uncle seriously ill and hospitalized. Wife has nursing experience for care. Daughter aspiring to medical school wants to observe Chinese medical system. But the biggest problem remained money. Broker fees were minimum $5,000 per person, $15,000 for 3. My life savings totaled only $8,000. My wife brought out gold items, 1 ring, 1 necklace, my 20th anniversary gifts. We sold them at Pyongyang market for $500. I gathered sellable items: a Toshiba laptop from the General Staff office, a Chinese tablet, a Japanese digital camera. High-ranking officials received such gifts on trips. We sold them on the black market for $2,000 total. I took out money hidden deep in a drawer, bribes accumulated over time, about $3,000. Every high-ranking official had such slush funds. Originally saved for my daughter's wedding. I borrowed the remaining $1,500 from a major general colleague, saying I needed money to buy things in China. He lent it without suspicion. Of course, I had no intention of returning. On January 9, I met with a broker at a tea house in Pyongyang's Dongdaewan district. $5,000 per person. I'm responsible from Shenyang to Laos, he said quietly. No guarantees if caught midway, I don't know you. On January 10, exit permission was granted. Surprisingly, state security approved it. Perhaps sending me to Musan was more urgent. Getting me far from Pyongyang achieved their goal. The hardest part was persuading my daughter. On the night of January 11th, I entered her room. "You know we're going to China?" She nodded. "From there, we're going to South Korea." Her eyes widened. "Dad, what do you mean?" Her voice trembled. "We can't live here anymore. We're never coming back." She started crying. "What about my friends? School? You said you wanted to be a doctor." I held her hand. "It's impossible here, but in South Korea, it's possible. You can achieve your dream." After crying for a while, she nodded. On January 13th, we did final home organizing. We could take almost nothing to avoid suspicion. My wife packed only one family photo. My daughter put her diary deep in her bag. That night I looked at Pyongyang's night view one last time. The Juche Tower lights were visible, the land where I'd lived 48 years. But there was no more hope. To survive, we had to leave. At 5 a.m. on January 14th, we headed to Pyongyang Station. The train departed at 7 a.m. for the 6-hour journey to Sinwiju, where we'd transfer to a China-bound train. Leaving home with our bags, I looked back. I'd never see this house again. On January 14, 2019, at 3 p.m., we arrived at Shenyang Taoshen International Airport. North Korean embassy agents were throughout the airport, monitoring us. After claiming baggage, I went to the third-floor restroom. In the third stall, I checked the trash can. A small note was there: Dongfang Hotel Room 342, Lee Jin-sok. At the hotel, the 40-something man turned up the TV volume. "From now on, speak in whispers. We have people next door too, but you never know who's listening." Lee spread out a map. Shenyang to Kunming by train, 36 hours. From there to the Laos border is mountain trails, 3 days on foot, 2 by car. Finally, cross the Mekong River into Thailand. The next dawn, we boarded the Kunming train. For 36 hours we barely spoke. My heart dropped whenever conductors came by. On the evening of January 16th, we reached Kunming. Lee took us to a small inn. "Rest tonight. Tomorrow the real journey begins." At 4 a.m. on January 17th, the mountain trek began. We walked narrow paths by moonlight. When my daughter struggled, I carried her. When my wife tired, I took her bag. The first night we slept in a cave, cold, damp floor with bat sounds. My daughter trembled with fear but couldn't cry aloud. Dog barking echoed in the distance. Patrol units. The second day was harder with pouring rain. The mountain path was slippery and we fell several times. My wife twisted her ankle but had to keep walking. Stopping meant getting caught. On the third day afternoon, we encountered Chinese patrol guards. 3 armed police blocked us. Lee handed them something, money. They counted it, nodded, and let us pass. On January 20th, we finally reached the Laos border. The Mekong River came into view, wider than expected. "We have to swim across," Lee said. At 11 p.m., we entered the river. The water was ice cold, only 15 degrees Celsius in January. My daughter screamed entering the water. I covered her mouth. "You must be quiet." Halfway across, my leg cramped. I swallowed water, choking. But I had to keep swimming. When my wife fell behind, I went back to pull her. Lee dragged my daughter. Gunshots sounded from across the river. Laos patrol. We didn't know if they were shooting at us or warning shots. We swam desperately. When my hands touched the riverbed, I felt alive. We climbed onto Laotian soil, bodies trembling from cold or fear, I couldn't tell. My daughter collapsed in my arms crying. "It's over," I stroked her back. But it wasn't over yet. 2 more days from Laos to Thailand, through jungle crawling with snakes and insects. My wife was bitten by a poisonous insect, but we had no medicine, she just had to endure. On January 22nd, we reached the Thai border. We told immigration officials we were defectors. They directed us to the Korean embassy, where we received temporary passports. On January 25th, we boarded a flight to Incheon. 11 days since leaving Pyongyang. When the in-flight meal came, my wife cried. It had been so long since warm rice. The plane landed at Incheon Airport on January 26, 2019, at 8 a.m. The enormous airport building and bright lights welcomed us. "This is the land of freedom." Tears came to my eyes. National Intelligence Service staff were waiting as we exited Incheon Airport immigration. Two men in black suits. You've been through a lot. One offered a handshake unimaginable in North Korea, where interrogators would shake hands first. We drove to the NIS building, a quiet structure in Seoul's suburbs. I was afraid until entering. In North Korea, state security interrogation meant torture. But inside, the atmosphere was completely different. The interrogation room was cozy with soft lighting and comfortable chairs. Warm tea and snacks were on the table. First, have some tea and rest, the investigator said. You must be exhausted, take your time telling us. They gave my daughter chocolate and juice. Are you okay? Tell us anytime if you're scared, the investigator kindly asked. She nodded and took the chocolate, a scene unimaginable in North Korea. The investigation lasted 2 days. Since you were a General Staff Lieutenant General, we have many questions about military intelligence. But you don't have to answer anything uncomfortable. We won't force you. They asked about the military structure. How is the General Staff organized? Can you tell us about Army Corps deployments to the extent you know? Questions were specific but not threatening. When I hesitated, they said, that's fine, let's move to the next question. They asked about Kim Jong-un too. Have you met him personally? What's loyalty like within the military? I answered what I knew: the November 2018 colleague execution, military corruption, drug problems. The investigators recorded everything carefully. We understand how difficult what you experienced must have been, the investigator said. You're safe now. No one here will threaten you. Those words brought tears. Safety felt real. After 2 days, we headed to Hanawan in Ansung, Gyeonggi Province. I was shocked upon arrival: clean buildings and well-maintained gardens, better than any North Korean education center. You'll receive 12 weeks of South Korean society adaptation training here, the guidance teacher explained. Our family's assigned room was small but cozy, a studio with kitchen and bathroom. My wife was amazed that hot water ran 24 hours. The curriculum was diverse: Korean history and culture, democracy concepts, capitalist economic systems. Everything was new. Most surprising was the free question and discussion class format. Ask questions anytime, teachers encouraged. We learned computer use too. I used the internet for the first time, searching Kim Jong-un. Countless articles and criticisms appeared, unimaginable in North Korea, where you could freely criticize leaders. My daughter participated in academic support programs. You can transfer to a South Korean high school, the teacher said. Medical school admission is definitely possible. My daughter's eyes sparkled, something she couldn't dream of in North Korea. My wife started nurse re-education. Your North Korean experience can be recognized. You just need to pass the certification exam. My wife smiled brightly for the first time, her first smile since leaving Pyongyang. I studied South Korean law and institutions. Voting rights, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, everything was amazing. Can we even criticize the president? I asked. Of course. That's democracy, the teacher answered. After 12 weeks, we graduated from Hanawan and moved to a small rental apartment in Seoul's Yeonpyeong district. 2 rooms with combined living room and kitchen facilities, much better than our Pyongyang apartment. The Seoul night view from the balcony was especially beautiful. We received settlement support funds from the government. Live on this for now. We'll also provide employment support, the caseworker kindly explained. Unimaginable in North Korea. One day I went to a mart at 10 p.m. still open. Fruit was piled like mountains. Factory workers in North Korea earned monthly wages that could buy only 3 or 4 apples. Here, one day's minimum wage could buy dozens of apples. The most moving experience was the election. During the April 2020 general election, I went to vote. People in line freely discussed politics. That candidate's pledges are terrible. I actually thought they were okay. They laughed while voicing different opinions. When I received the ballot, my hands trembled. Being able to choose among multiple candidates was amazing. In North Korea, we only cast approval votes for Kim Jong-un. But here I could choose who I wanted. True freedom. My daughter transferred to high school. Adaptation was initially difficult, but her math and science grades were excellent, earning teacher praise. Medical school admission is definitely possible, her homeroom teacher said. My daughter's dream was becoming reality. Every evening I go to the balcony and look at Seoul's night view. The twinkling lights look like stars. I think of compatriots left in North Korea. I pray this freedom we found will someday reach North Korean soil too. The lieutenant general uniform I wore for 22 years is gone now. But its weight still remains on my shoulders. Colleagues' deaths, starving people, the rotting system, I remember it all. That's why I testify like this. At this moment, I'm grateful to breathe freely. Leaving North Korea was the best decision. Now our family has started a true life. Thank you for listening to my story.